What is a false flag? The encyclopedia definition reads, false flag operations are covert operations conducted by governments, corporations, or by other organizations which are designed to appear as if they were carried out by other entities. The name is derived from the military concept of flying false colors, that is, flying the flag of a country other than your own. There are many variants of false flag operations, but one of the most popular carried out by governments is to stage a terror attack or horrible criminal incident and then blame it on your political enemies. In the early 1960s, the federal government needed an excuse, a pretext to invade Cuba. Seldom do we see examples as sterling as the Northwoods document, where the federal government actually put the plan to paper. It was actually carried in published media reports in ABC News and of course, the Baltimore Sun. The federal government proposed blowing up airliners full of Americans, saying that casualty lists in U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of indignation. The mad general, the architect of this plan, was General L.L. Lemitzer, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff. He got approval for his Faustian plan all the way up to the Secretary of Defense. President Kennedy was not amused. In the plan, they elaborated on how they could bomb Washington, D.C. and blame it on Cuba. Attack Marines at Guantanamo Bay using U.S. Army soldiers dressed up as Cubans. Or, they said, just like the sinking of the Maine to get into the Spanish-American War, we could blow up a ship again. Here they are admitting the problem-reaction-solution system and how effective it is to motivate the American people to get them behind a war, a nuclear war with Cuba and the Soviet Union. And you didn't believe that the government was capable of hijacking its own aircraft and killing its own citizens.
If you need a painted picture of what is happening in this country, let's recognize how history repeats itself. In February 1933, Hitler staged a false flag attack, burning down his own German parliament building, the Reichstag, and blamed it on communist terrorists. In the next few weeks, he passed the Enabling Act, which completely eradicated the German Constitution, destroying people's liberties. He then led a series of preemptive wars, all justified to the German people as necessary to maintaining homeland security.
Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
September 11th was the jumpstart for what is now an accelerated agenda by the ruthless elite. It was a staged war pretext no different than the sinking of the Lusitania, the provoking of Pearl Harbor, and the Gulf of Tonkin lie. In fact, if 9/11 wasn't a planned war pretext, it would be an exception to the rule. It has been used to launch two unprovoked illegal wars, one against Iraq and one against Afghanistan. However, 9/11 was a pretext for another war as well, the war against you. The Patriot Act, Homeland Security, the Military Tribunals Act, and other legislations are all completely and entirely designed to destroy your civil liberties and limit your ability to fight back against what is coming.
In his recent State of the Union address, George W. Bush referred to the three great evils of the last century: Hitlerism, communism, and militarism. He couldn't bring himself to say the word fascism because he is one, and he knows that he is one.
The arrogance of this Bush and Hitler is one of the closest comparisons I can possibly make. I was born in Germany. I went through the Nazi period until 14 days before the war broke out, and there are things going on in this country which make me feel just as uncomfortable as I did then.
There's a great similarity there. Plus, I think everything that Hitler did was legal in his country, and I think that Bush is really tearing the Constitution apart.
The American people never go to war unless they're tricked. They never go to war unless they're tricked.
These elitists don't run the country based on what we think. They run it on what they want, and then they build up the propaganda. And what they now have schools on this called perception management and information warfare to make sure that they get some sort of public acceptance of it.
You know, the American people didn't want to go into Iraq, and they were finally conditioned to go in, but now 71% want us to come home after all the tragedy. Nobody wants to go into Iran, but you know, if there's some type of an incident that they can use to scare the people, frighten the people again, They may well come, around to supporting it, but it's going to be even more tragic if we do this than going into Iraq, because I think the consequences are far more.
So the notion of a U.S. war on terrorism is simply a fraud. There is no war on terrorism. The Anglo-Americans are backing terrorists exactly when and where it suits them.
The bulk of my research in my book, The War and Truth, concerns the role of Al-Qaeda as an instrument of Western covert operations. And this really does, for me, fundamentally undermine the entire concept of the war on terror, the entire view that they've given us of 9/11 and what happened. Because if Al-Qaeda is an instrument of covert operations rather than an enemy of the West, then there is no war on terror. And this is really the crux of the issue.
This is a typical British strategy. You've got to know the name of Brigadier General Sir Frank Kitson. He was the British operations officer in Kenya at the time of the Mau Mau. And what Kitson saw, which has been known to commanders for centuries, millennia, if you've got an underground nationalist organization and you want to discredit them, you create your own parallel underground nationalist organization. It's got to have the same name. It's got to have a false flag. You send them out, have it commit tremendous atrocities. Those will be blamed on the original relatively benign group, and they'll be discredited, they'll be demonized, and you gain political advantage. He wrote a book about it called Low Intensity Operations. And the technique is called the technique of the counter gang or the pseudo gang. Just as Al-Qaeda, in the broader sense, is a pseudo gang or counter gang created by US and British and Israeli intelligence. It's a counter gang against normal Arab nationalists or anybody with any positive agenda for reform or independence or development anywhere in the Arab world. They can always be labeled Al-Qaeda. The reductio ad absurdum of this is President Chavez of Venezuela, after giving Bush a hard time at various conferences and doing things to undermine the dollar, the neocons are now accusing President Chavez of being a member of Al-Qaeda. So you can see how easy it is to demonize somebody once you've got a good counter gang going.
It's now being documented beyond a doubt, based on historical records, that the CIA, the MI6, teamed up with very, very secretive parallel elements of European intelligence services and orchestrated terrorist attacks to mobilize the public against the left, against the communists, and so on and so forth. And this would be really shocking to people if they knew that this is what happened. And this is what happened, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the best book on it is Daniel Ganser's book, NATO's Secret Armies. So this is serious academic stuff.
Conspiracies don't need 10,000 people. They just need a few people to be carried out. But what they need also is hundreds of millions of people out there who don't want to assume the risk and the responsibility for getting to the root causes.
It is not shameful to ask questions. What if we had asked questions back? I'm sure all of you are aware of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. You know that the past is prologue here, that we have a false flag, an excuse to go to war. It happened in Pearl Harbor. It happened with the Operation Northwoods. Just Google it and read to your heart's content, where the United States government has been behind so many of these different things and blamed it on someone else. This is our Reichstag fire. This is what we'll implement, will bring us into martial law. This has functioned to take away our civil liberties. It could not have happened. We could not have had the excuse to go to war. To get us there. This has been planned for a long time, long before 9/11. How is it that the very next day, all of a sudden, whoop, it's Osama bin Laden? Whenever they tell you they know who it is, you know, I mean, right away we knew who did it. We had the passports of these guys in the rubble of the World Trade Center, Vesey Street, where they found those passports. I used to walk up and down that street all the time. And when I saw the rubble in that street up to here, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, these buildings were pulverized, fuselages were destroyed, but a passport was intact. Right then and there, I knew it was a lie. Just like Oklahoma City, where they found these journals. They always find something that right away that proves, you know, we're going here, and we're from this group, and we hate these people, and okay, look, this is who did it. And every time you see that, you know that that's a big lie.
War is always a lie, and it's always begun by a set of lies. Truth is the first casualty of war, said Aeschylus the Greek thousands of years ago. And usually the lie is a staged incident that gives the excuse for going to war. And these kind of stage incidents, which frighten people, become a way to get social hegemony and social control.